Ciao ragazzi, come state? Tutto bene? So today we're going to talk about indirect object pronouns in Italiano, which confuse people a lot, but honestly they're not that bad. But you have to use them. I mean, you will use them like every day if you're speaking Italian. All right? Let's look at the formation. So these are all of your pronouns right here. Io, tu, lui, lei formale, right? Noi, voi, loro. And these are all the uh, indirect object pronouns for each of our pronouns, right? So io would be me, tu, ti, gli for lui, le for lei, le with capital L for formale, ci, vi, and gli, okay? So these ones you really gotta know. All right, this is an example of all of these different indirect object pronouns for each pronoun with the verb scrivere. Per esempio, lui mi scrive in italiano. Io ti scrivo in italiano. Io gli scrivo in italiano, eccetera, eccetera. Okay? All right, now let's look at a good list of alcuni verbi che usano indirect object pronouns. Okay? So if I were you, I would make a list of all of these. These are not the only ones that use them. These are probably, I guess, just the main ones you really should know. So assomigliare, chiedere, rispondere, imprestare o prestare, ok? So in italiano ci sono due verbi per to lend, imprestare e anche prestare. I use more prestare quando parlo italiano, but you can also use imprestare, ok? Mandare, portare, scrivere, telefonare, vendere. Notice that chiamare does not use indirect object pronouns, it uses direct object pronouns. So telefonare uses indirect and chiamare uses direct. Now what I'd like to say about all these verbs is notice that they are all actions that give something or transfer or act upon something. So per esempio, dare is to give to. Dire to give to, vendere to sell to. I didn't put the to here, but you're selling to, right? Portare to bring to, mandare to bring to, you're sending it to someone, right? So these verbs, when when an object is receiving an action from them, it's going to be indirect object. We're going to look at more examples più tardi, però per adesso dovete scrivere tutti questi verbi su una foglia per ricordarti bene, ok? Good rule of thumb, come ho già detto, verbs that give an action to someone or something use indirect object pronouns. Something is being received, given, or transferred over. Now, obviously, you can use, per esempio, per mandare, dov'è qua? Per mandare, that can use an indirect or direct object pronoun depending on how you're using it. Per esempio, if you're saying, I am sending him a letter, io gli mando una lettera, that's indirect. If I'm saying I send a letter and I want to replace the letter, io la mando. Ok? Questo è molto importante. The indirect object receives the action of the verb. Questo te l'ho già detto. Indirect pronouns answer questions like a chi, to whom, per chi, for whom. Okay? So let's look at direct object versus indirect object. With a direct object, you're literally just replacing a person or an object. So lei compra una gonna. This is a skirt, una gonna. Lei la compra. Io voglio il panino. This is il panino, io lo voglio. Noi amiamo questi ragazzi. Noi li amiamo. Okay, so this is just replacing this. This doesn't receive anything. It's just our, object, the direct object in the sentence. Indirect object pronouns. Io chiedo a Dario. Remember here it answers the questions a chi, per chi. Di aiutare. Okay, so we're going to replace this with the indirect object. Io gli, which is a Dario, gli chiedo di aiutare. Tu dici a me, so this is answering again, a chi, to say to whom. Tu dici a me che sei stanco. Tu mi dici che sei stanco. Loro comprano una casa per te. Again, answering the question per chi. Loro ti comprano una casa, right? Okay, some more examples of the indirect object pronoun in sentences. Lui mi vuole bene. Luisa mi domanda se può uscire dopo cena. Io ti mando l'indirizzo quando finisco il lavoro. Noi vi telefoniamo per parlare della riunione. Perché Carla non mi risponde mai? Io ti voglio comprare un vestito per stasera. I want to buy for you. Io ti voglio comprare per te. Io ti dico la verità. I am saying to you. Okay? You can also attach indirect object pronouns to infinitives, which honestly is probably more common than saying them separately. Per esempio, io ti voglio scrivere una lettera. Io voglio scriverti una lettera. This is said more than this in colloquial speech, right? It's more common to just add it to the end of the infinitive. Lui mi deve parlare prima di tornare a casa. Lui deve parlarmi prima di tornare a casa. Notice when you're adding it to the infinitive, the final vowel in the verb disappears, like parlare, right? E goes away and it's mi. Scrivere, E goes away and it's ti. So the final vowel in the verb disappears and you just insert the indirect object pronoun. Ok, va bene? Adesso dobbiamo tradurre queste frasi insieme, noi insieme. So pause the video, try to translate each of these phrases, ogni frase, e dopo vedremo le risposte insieme, ok? Okay, you guys, let's look at the risposte per queste frasi. So the first one was, I want to buy you a bottle of wine. Io voglio comprarti una bottiglia di vino. You also could have said, io ti voglio comprare una bottiglia di vino if you didn't want to add it to the infinitive, but they're both right, okay? She is lending me her books. Lei mi impresta o presta, it's the stessa cosa, questi verbi sono gli stessi. Lei mi impresta i suoi libri. What do you want to ask me? Cosa o che cosa vuoi chiedermi? You could also say, che cosa mi vuoi chiedere? Okay? But again, it is more normal to just add it to the infinitive. We have something to tell him. Abbiamo qualcosa da dirgli. I guess you could say gli abbiamo qualcosa da dire, but again, it's really just a lot more normal to add it to the end of the infinitive. That's used much more frequently. I have to call her immediately. Le devo telefonare subito o immediatamente. You could also say with this one, devo telefonarle subito. The waiter gives us the check. Il cameriere ci dà il conto. Okay? Notice we can't, since there is no infinitive here, it is going to be ci dà. That's the only right answer, right? Lei vuole scrivergli una lettera quest'estate. She wants to write him a letter this summer. You could also say lei gli vuole scrivere. Oh, but it makes way more sense again, and it sounds better just to add it to the infinitive. Are you sending him an invitation? Tu gli mandi un invito. Yes, un invito is an invitation. So questo ragazzi è tutto per oggi. Remember, write down questi verbi qua per aiutarvi un po'. It's not that hard. Se avete domande fatemi sapere. Per adesso questo è tutto. Grazie mille e alla prossima.